Okay, good morning. Hi, everyone, and welcome to whatever platform you're watching this on, Facebook, or it could possibly be YouTube or Instagram, listening to my podcast, Sensual Over 60. My name is Karen Drosnes. I am transformational coach, and I will be your host for today. I am so friggin' excited for this episode of whatever platform I'm going to put it on because I don't know yet. We're just flowing. I have a special guest today, and I'm going to introduce her in a second. But I want you all to just open up with me and take a nice deep breath in and just relax it out. Feel your chest as it rises with the inhale and it folds in with that exhale. And just get yourself right there because I really want you to be present. I also want to address that Lisa and I were having a little bit of conversation prior to recording this. And as we were talking, I could hear noises and it sounded like a scratching sound. And I said, "Are you moving your hand across the desk?" And she said, "No, I'm not moving at all." So if you hear a noise, a tunnel sound, or a scratching sound, it could be the energies because I got me a very special energy person with us today. Lisa O'Brien's Urbalis is with us today, and I'm going to have her introduce herself and what she actually does. But before I do that, I have been working with Lisa for, gosh, if not over 2 years now. What I call it is she does energy grid light work, and she just gets into me and helps me release all kinds of cords and attachments of not just this life of, all right, not just this present time, to release cords of traumas that I have experienced during this incarnation. She also helps me release generational ones. And we'll get into that in just a second so you'll know what it's all about. But let me introduce to you my friend, my guru in some sense, my inspiration, and a woman who has done wonders for me to be able to do my healing. Lisa doesn't heal me, I heal me. Lisa gets in there and helps me open up for the healing to happen. But I'll let her define and describe to you. Hi, Goddess Lisa. How are you?
Hello.
Oh,
I'm very excited to be here.
oh,
And thank you so much for inviting me. Yeah, this is a real pleasure. And just to share and speak about, what huge transformational things we're all going through as, human beings on this planet in this time. And it's a very intense and yet very important and exciting time. So thank you for inviting me to be here and to speak a little bit about that.
I honor that.
Um, so I'll just share a little bit about myself. My journey started 20 years ago, and I'll be real brief. But my younger son, at 5 years old, he was born with some digestive issues, but they really got pretty severe, and a lot of anxiety and different things, came with that. And I went the Western medicine route, which has wonderful things. So I'm not against Western medicine at all. But it wasn't able to help him with what he was going through. So as a mom, of course, desperate to support him and help him, I got catapulted into the alternative holistic field. And by synchronicity, because I don't really believe in coincidences or accidents or mistake, anything like that, I was connected with actually a Catholic nun, Sister Carol Beavers, who also was a Reiki master. And I knew nothing about Reiki, had never really even heard of it. And through that connection, started getting involved in Reiki and started using that on my son to help with the anxiety. And then holistic nutrition and that sort of thing to help with the digestive issues. And we were able to turn things around in about 8 months. And so I was very excited about that. And I really thought that my journey would just be, using this for family, maybe some close friends, that sort of thing. And somehow it just expanded and expanded and expanded. And I'm so incredibly grateful to be a part of this work. And as Karen said, I am not the healer. Each person is the healer of themselves. I'm the facilitator, and I support people in that healing. And I think once I said yes to doing this work for more of the public and the masses, um, teachers just started coming into my field. They just started showing up. I have never sought out any of my teachers, and I've had quite a few amazing teachers, from Native American to shamanic to the work that I do now, the light grid work, and I'll explain why it's called that in a moment. And I still work with that teacher remotely. And for some reason, my teachers seem to always come from abroad. So it's just an interesting thing. One from Australia, Ireland, Germany, Greece. So
Just going to jump in real quick because it's just pounding in my head to say, you are the living proof example. When the student's ready, the teacher will appear.
that is absolutely true.
And yes, we live in that abundant universe that only responds with yes.
Absolutely.
It may not look the way we like it. It may not be what we visioned it, but it's still a yes. And you just really were the perfect epitome of that. Thanks. So sorry.
No, thank you, sweetie. And I think too, we obviously, when these doors open and opportunities come in, our free will gives us a choice to go down that path, to say yes or no, I'm not ready, or, and that's okay, because even if we veer off a little bit, it can still come back, because what's happening is it's our heart's desire and passion that actually open up the field that draws things into it. So I think one of the things that people tend to think is that we have to go after something that we want. And the truth is that when we have to do the work, but when we open our heart's desire, it's like a compass, and it just points to what's needed. And you actually open up the energy that, like a magnet, it draws it to you. Yeah, so that's the difference. I think when some people get frustrated of, I've been trying, I've been doing, I've been searching, and it's always, outside. It's like as we're chasing it, it keeps moving away, right? So, we can't do it with our mind. We have to use the heart. The heart will always prevail because its magnetic field is 5,000 times stronger than the heart's, I'm sorry, the mind, okay, the magnetic field. So the heart is that much stronger, and what we're creating will come from that place. And when we're connected into source, which is who we are, right? We're a divine spark of source that has come down. It's incarnated in physical form in all of creation, in nature and animals and human beings. And, it's all source experiencing in my belief system. And so when you're connected into that, uh, because we can step out of it, right? Like a battery. So you have a battery, it's in a charger. And if you remain in that charger, which is divine source, it's just abundant, and the potential is unlimited. When we step out of that alignment with source, okay, which we can do very easily, and we'll get into that too, of how that happens, then your system is running on the charge that it had, but eventually it gets depleted, right? And so whatever it is we're trying to create outside of that alignment, it can start to create, and then it'll fizzle out because we've lost the momentum, right? The energy to place into it. So we have to step back into alignment,
Right.
with our higher self and with source. So we have, my teachings, and this came from a Native American, Danangawa, who is a Wolf Clan teacher, and he was explaining, and they language things differently, a bit, but so I'll put him in my language. But he's talking that we have two souls. We have an earth soul, and we have our divine soul. Okay. And the earth soul is what, when we are in the womb, okay, and everything, the cells are dividing and everything's developing, the earth soul comes in and it's taking care of the heart pumping, breathing, all the things we don't have to think about, okay, all the body's functionings. And so, for example, someone who becomes catatonic, right, or in a coma, the earth soul is still taking care of the body's survival, but the divine soul isn't in, okay? And so a lot of people believe, and I do myself as well, is that the divine soul comes in at the time of birth, when we're actually being birthed. So it kind of hangs out here until the mom actually is birthing the child. And once the child's being birthed into the world, it will come in. Okay. But the earth soul's already there. And so the divine soul is our, all knowing and our connection into universal source, right? To knowing everything. Everything we need to know is we already know it. It's our programs and our teachings that can keep us from that. And when we came in, we chose to come in without our memory. And there's a whole thing behind that, which we don't have time to go into now, but there was a reason for that. um, so it's just important to understand that there's systems within systems. So to simplify this, we have our body system that's made up of many systems, the digestive system, reproductive system, respiratory, so forth and so on. And then those systems are made up of systems. So the digestive system is made up of the digestive organs. And then the digestive organs are made up of systems. And so this goes down infinitely. And then our body system is part of our family system. Family systems are part of the community systems. Community systems are part of all of the other systems that we have. And again, this just continues on. And the only thing we have control over is our own individual system, not anybody else's.
Right. Let me ask you a quick question with that. The system you're talking about, Lisa, is that what is the grid?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Because each thing connects into each thing,
Okay.
right? And so if there's distortion within our system, which we all have, whether we use the distortion or imbalances or programs that don't fit who we are, it will cause patterns and behaviors in our life, right? Because it's trying to show us what's running in the subconsciousness. We're run by 90 to 95% of our subconscious mind. So it only leaves 5 to 10% of our consciousness awareness that we can make decisions from, reason from. You know what I mean? Look at, okay, that didn't work out so well this way. Let me try another way. Perhaps that isn't the best way for me to go. But the subconscious mind is like a machine, and so it takes in every piece of information through our senses and the learnings, and it's not discerning. And it has every blink and breath and every millisecond of our life stored in there, which is amazing, right? It means we don't need to relearn anything. It's all there somewhere, but it's not discerning. So even if the information that's being fed into the subconscious is not right, it isn't true, or it doesn't fit who you are, it's still running in there.
So is everyone's earth soul the same? Is earth soul just earth soul the same, or does it enter each person uniquely?
That's a great question. And I would say that as far as, you know what, I'd have to go into meditation on that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a fabulous question. Because again, the earth soul is the part of the earth, right? That we're all made from, all the elementals, the earth energy, which is our minerals and nutrients and all the things that come from the earth that keep us going, right? Our food sources and all of that. And then we have water, right? So we're made up of 80% or so much of fluids. Then we have fire, which is all of our heat and digestion and the temperature of the body, and air, right? Our breath. So all of those elements make up who we are. And whether that is different in some way, I'd have to explore that a little bit deeper as far as how that, yeah, yeah.
I just want to let our audience know real quick, and for those that are watching, that again, I've worked with Lisa many times and in her presence, and now with some of the restrictions we have, we're doing Zoom or FaceTime calls. And I get to watch Lisa, and I can tell, I'm just going to put it out there. Lisa gets downloads. Like I can see when Lisa's brain, Lisa herself, kind of like not leaves, but she's gone, and the downloads. So just to put it out there that for some of you, I watch when she goes into the flow, and it's like, don't interrupt her, just let her go, because she's getting downloads. So what we're hearing, people, is downloads Lisa gets. And that's what's so important and unique for me with Lisa, is because she is such an open vessel for these downloads from all of these ancestral teachers, not just in the physical form, but in the ancestral form that comes to her. So sorry to interrupt your flow, my love.
No, 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 not at all. And it's a wonderful, point as far as when I'm talking about our programs, right? They don't just come from this life when we were born. They do come in from the ancestral lineage, because it's can be in the DNA,
Right.
right? But I do want to say it's really important to understand that our DNA can be changed. All right. So there is scientists with a hypothesis, and it is a hypothesis, right? And Dr. Bruce Lipton's work is fabulous if anybody wants to, explore a little bit deeper into all of that. And he's worked with stem cell research. He was a professor. He's done a lot of important work, and he has discovered the spirit in each cell, which is amazing, right? And he also talks about that, DNA is everything is energy. So it can be changed. You are not predisposed to your DNA. What happens is, though, is that we have the belief system that we are, and so therefore we are. All right. So your cells, all of our cells, trillions of cells are responding to our belief systems. And remember, 90 to 95% of our belief systems are in the subconscious part of the mind. We're not even aware of what it is. So I don't want anybody to take on my belief system or anybody else's, but just to share the information and to go within yourself and say, wow, does this feel right or true to me? Right. But with all of my experience and research and things that I've been involved in with different clients and teachers, and I just feel so blessed to have access to information and downloads, because I'll be working with a client and something will come in that I wasn't even asking about. But it's just information. I'm like, wow, this is awesome, right?
So that's a perfect segue to say that is why we're doing this interview,
Yes.
because Lisa and I were in a session last week, and everybody knows me by now. And the shit that was coming, I just was like, oh, my mind was blown with the information you were getting at that moment of what was happening on a universal level. It wasn't
Yes.
happening inside of Karen, and we'll get to exactly how you get in, or you can see the grid. It wasn't exactly that. It was the whole universal. So with that, I'm going to ask you a quick question, honey. Could you define for us or talk with us about your belief? Because Lisa's very clear. She's only giving her beliefs, not just about the collective consciousness, because we are in, as you said, a huge state right now. I don't mean state in our country. I mean state in
Right.
our head, in our mental, which is in our body, because it's all one, right? We're carrying all that. So with that, we're creating, and I'll go to a quote because I had to write it down in my notes that you gave me in my own stuff last week, that the planet is the pollution reflecting back to us the pollution in ourselves.
Mm,
I don't know if you remember telling me that last week, but that because you were going. So let's go back to the question, and what is collective consciousness and how does that affect us all?
okay, no, that's awesome because it's so incredibly important, because we have to take individual responsibility. So this is how it works. There's billions of human beings, right? People on this planet. So just imagine the planet is like a field. And I don't want to use a battlefield because the word battle is very resistant, but in a sense, there's just so much going on and has been going on for, thousands of years of conflict, right? And unrest and different things, on different lands and here as well at times of, civil war, revolutionary war, different things. And so billions of people are on this planet and each person is giving off a frequency. Okay. So we are energetic beings and we are vibrational beings. So even though things look like they have form and some solidness to them, the truth is this is all energy, molecules and neutrons and protons and electrons bouncing off of each other. And the mind perceives, like our physical eye brings what we're seeing into the brain, and the brain then is translating it into form. Okay. All
Okay.
right. So it's the brain that's translating it into form. And this is why when I go into the quantum field and we begin to release form, okay, and I know I've done that with Karen before, that things just start to go away, meaning like the room starts to fade away a little bit, our form starts to fade away because what is happening is we're bypassing the mind and going right to the heart. All right. And when we do that, then we can release different trauma and stuff that's in the system that kind of gets frozen or solidified in the system, which causes blocks. And anything that's frozen or inside the system is when trauma comes in, it's pushed the spirit out because it's occupying that space. Okay. So once the trauma is released, it creates that space again. And then that part of your spirit can move back into that space. All right. So I'm just sharing that because on the collective, this is what we're all dealing with, right? Every single human being has some trauma in some form, which means that, and has these programs running in the subconsciousness. And so they're putting out a frequency, and this each individual frequency is going out into the field, okay, because the field is energy as well, right? And it's then creating events, okay, or experiences or circumstances, whatever you want to label that as, based on what it is we're putting into the field. So if we have, a huge amount of human beings putting fear into the field or any type of, frustration, anger, jealousy, envy, I mean, the list goes on. These are really deep lower frequencies and they're feeding into this field and then they can literally draw others down into that frequency if we're not being really mindful and conscious about raising our own frequency. Because remember in the beginning of this, I was saying we have no control over anybody else's system or frequency or any of the other systems out there. And, we can complain all we want. We can, you know, uh, say things against a system that we're not happy with all we want. But all we're doing then is feeding more of that anger and frustration into the collective field. So what's important is to understand that each individual is having, an important effect on that field. And we have to take self-responsibility of where we are within that. And how do we get, to a place where we can raise the frequency and be very respectful that other people have different belief systems. They're just as passionate about their belief system as we are about our own, right? And, you know, when we're so passionate about a belief system, we want to convince everybody else to get on board with us, right? Because we know that this is the right way, but they're feeling just the same way. So now you've got this thing going on, that everybody's pushing back, right? And so this is where all the conflict comes in, as opposed to saying, you know, we all want the same thing, right? We want freedom, right? We want health, right? We want good health. We want a healthy environment. We want clean water. We want clean food. We want to, to be comfortable, meaning we have a roof over our head. We have, clothing that we need. We have relationships. We have love. You know what I mean? We want to love and be loved. Like, I believe every human being wants those, basic sovereignty, right? Sovereign, to be a sovereign being, and to, I don't think that human beings want to be in conflict with one another. We just don't know how to do it differently because of our programming.
Okay. All right. So this was my big aha with Lisa last week in my session, because I was in conflict and with someone who was just as passionate about their point of view as I was being about mine. And it got really, wow. And Lisa was able to bring up what she was just talking about, which shifted me so quickly to recognize that I was denying that other person their point of view, their belief. I wanted it to not be the way they saw it. I wanted it to be the way I see it. And that just kept that conflict, and it got really heated. We were able to control and come out of that, but that was what this was really. There was the root of it for me, Lisa, last week, which I said, we have got to get this message out. So let me ask you a quick question and see if you can get to something with this. I know there is just as many high vibing people on this planet as there are non. So what wins out in conflict? And I don't know what wins out in conflict, but why are we facing? Is it our perception of what we're looking at? Is it our past traumas, or are we not in conflict?
So, people are evolving,
Okay.
right? And we had the Dark Ages, right, and then the Renaissance, and we're actually in a new age now. And some would say like the age of Aquarian, right? So we are evolving as human beings, and also the planet is also evolving. So I'm going to put a term out there called ascension, okay, right? So we're ascending, and so we are ascending, and the planet is ascending. But in order to come into those new frequencies and these higher frequencies, we have to release all of the old systems, right? The old paradigms, the old things that have been in the old system in order to come into a new system. Okay. And so that's why it's like growing pains. Right. And I like to use the analogy of a snake who has now outgrown its skin. So it needs to shed that skin. But that is not a comfortable process for the snake. Right. One, it's very vulnerable during that time. It's shedding its skin. It has this film that comes over its eye, so it can't really see very clearly. And, it's not comfortable peeling, right, this old skin off, because the snake is expanding and bigger now and having this new skin, that it's coming into. So it's the same thing for us as we're evolving. The old systems are dying, right? They're falling away because they have to make room for a new system to come in. But one of human beings' biggest fears is the unknown, right? And so a lot of times we'll stay stuck in something that's known, even though we know that we don't like it, it's not good for us, or, because oof, at least we know what it is, right?
Yeah, I talk about that a lot. And for me, fear of the unknown, it's not so much the unknown, it's the story that I'm creating about what the unknown is going to bring,
Correct.
my past experience. Because if it was unknown, it wouldn't come into my thought process. So it's a known thing that I just, so yes, it's getting out of that comfort zone is the most vulnerable thing any human can ever do.
Right.
To get out of their comfort zone.
Yeah. And thank you, because it's a wonderful point to point out that the reason why we're so uncomfortable with it is because we're either attaching to a past experience, right? Or we're projecting in the future all the what ifs based on information we've been fed, right? And so, yeah. And so there's the subconscious part, because sometimes we're not aware that that's what we're doing. And what happens is we are it's coming out into our field, and our field is actually creating what's in the subconsciousness as well as the consciousness, but a lot of it's in the subconsciousness. So a lot of my clients will come in and say, I thought I was done with this, you know what I mean? And yet here it comes around again, like what the hell is going on? And that's what it is. It's because they have cleared a lot of it, once it was in the awareness, but there's still some in the subconsciousness, or there's still some trauma in the nervous system that, needs to be released. So your system will create, okay, an experience to show you, nope, still got some left in there that you need to clear. You know what I mean? Or here's something you haven't been able to see, and it's right here. I'm showing it to you.
Right. And
Yeah.
replace that with another, because it just feels like once I get rid of one thing with you, something else shows up.
Yep.
All of this, Lisa, I call Lisa and I'm like, girl, I need to see. I have got appointments set for the next 8 months, once a month with Lisa. And in 2 months, we'll probably schedule for another 8. It's not that that's how messed up I am, because someone made a comment to me the other day about you don't need to fix anything. And this is very true. However, I am very clear that there is such deep rooted for me, not
Right.
for everybody, for me, that there is just deep rooted stuff that came in again, as I said in the earlier part of this show, that came in this incarnation, meaning in this lifetime. Yes, I do believe. Well, I don't know what I believe. Working with Lisa, I find out I don't know what I believe anymore. It was everything for me. I do want to find out, and I know it's hard to describe, but how you do that clearing, because what it is you see. Because I can look at Lisa and I know she is not looking at my face. She is not looking at my structure. She is inside my body, going into my system and plucking these things away. But I'll get to there. So, is it the same thing? All right. Oh, okay. I just got downloaded. Ask Lisa, is there one root of all of our shit that once we peel back everything, we get to that one root, we pluck that out, and then we're whole? Or is that called death?
No, I wouldn't call it death. So the one root that, all of us are dealing with is not remembering the truth of who we are. Okay. Not remembering that we are more powerful than you could possibly imagine, as far as we are creators, and you can create whatever it is that you want. Okay. And so,
Material.
no, I'm not talking material.
Just
Right.
let's put it that way, because you can create your material life too.
Absolutely, you can.
Right.
Absolutely, you can. And for me, it's about, what would be my heaven on earth, right? My utopia. What would that look like? Okay. And I went into meditation a few weeks ago, and I was asking spirit, show me, like what is it, what is the potential that we can have here? And I was just blown away, because it was almost like I was transported onto this. So imagine, like, we're on this earth, but the earth is ascending as well. And so what they showed me is like there's a split happening, okay? Because everything is dimensions, so there's no time and space. So I know this gets a little like the mind's like it's hard to wrap the mind around, right? But there's no time and space, so everything's happening, right? It's different dimensions. So personally, I do believe in past lives, but our past lives are all still happening, okay? Because it's just different dimensions, and sometimes a past life can filter into this life. So just imagine if there's veils in these dimensions, and that's why some people have these like crazy phobias, and there's no reason to have that phobia. You know what I mean? Because they never experienced anything. When I watched little ones, I had this one little boy that was, I mean, terrified of dogs, and yet never had a bad experience with a dog. And this child literally, I mean, it was, oh my gosh, it was heartbreaking. And I knew it had nothing to do with this life. You know what I mean? And so, so these things can filter in. So what I was shown is that the earth, like I said, is also ascending. And depending where we are within our frequency, it's almost kind of like splitting dimensionally. And so we're going to have the old earth that has the older energies, right? The conflict, the fear, the violence, what have you. And then we have the ascending earth, okay, that is moving up in its frequency. And those that are on the same frequency with it. So I know it sounds a little wiggy,
No,
but yeah. And so, but this is what I was shown in my meditation. And so this new earth, the consciousness on that new earth, there is no such thing as violence.
oh,
So
how
there's,
can we get there now?
oh my goodness, we're working on it. And so there's no reason to have any weapons, you know what I mean? Guns don't exist. Like these things just don't exist because it's not even in our consciousness to harm, right? And I, as I'm on this new earth, right, experiencing in this meditation, I'm experiencing the waters were pristine, and the air, everything was just so pure. Everything was thriving. All of nature was thriving, and you could literally communicate with all of these elementals. You know what I mean? You could communicate with the water and with the trees. And again, this is a Native American teaching as well, right? That they share that these things are possible. And I have experienced it personally in my life in just a few occasions of literally connecting, with one was a dragonfly, and I literally was the dragonfly and could just for seconds, like 30 seconds, and I was blown away. Like, what is this? And I had a teacher, Mr. Uizu. We were all sitting in meditation. He's from Japan. Like I said, teachers all come from foreign places. And we were in this circle, we're meditating, and he was holding my hand, and I'm holding the next person's, and we're all holding hands. And afterwards, he looked at me, and he only spoke Japanese, so it had to be interpreted. And he was like, "Thank you for showing me God's blueprint." And I was like, "What?" But I knew in that meditation, I was seeing the blueprint of all of creation. So I knew what he was talking about. Like it was just wild. And these aren't me, right? This is, like you say, a connection. It's not me doing these things. Um, but the new earth that I was on for that half an hour meditation or whatever was so incredible. And I know in my heart is real. It exists. And we're working our way towards that. But we have to release our programming, which takes time because it's layered and it runs deep, right? Because it comes in really while we're in the womb. So mom's traumas are going to be part of baby's traumas. And
Yeah.
so the older that we are and the deeper the traumas, this is why, some take longer to clear than others, because you can't do it all at once. You would implode, like your system couldn't handle that. So it will release what it can handle when it can handle it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, because you brought up again another point from our session the other day, and one of the questions was, or one of the statements you had, and I wanted you to explain it a little bit more, that we are either clearing or feeding the new world.
Hmm.
So what do you sense is happening right now in our time? Are we in the clearing or are we in the feeding, or are we in both? And what side do we want to be on? It's like the old Native American prophecy, there's two wolves, your ego,
Hmm.
spirit, which one are you feeding? There's
Right.
father and the grandson's talking about this conflict he's having, and the grandfather says, well, there's this one and there's this one wolf and this wolf. And the grandson asked, I think everybody might know that, you can look it up, the grandfather and grandson philosophy on the wolf. Anyhow, the point is, the grandson asks the grandfather which wolf wins, because they're in a conflict, they're in a fight. And the grandfather's answer is, whichever one you feed.
Perfect. It's such a wonderful analogy, right?
Or
And the
which
truth is,
you feed.
right, we're doing both, right? So we're clearing the denser, okay, frequencies and energies, traumas from the system, because you have to understand that the ego, I'm going to call it the alter ego, okay, because the ego is important.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
Okay, right. So, the ego is important, and we're not trying to destroy the ego, right? But we want it to be healthy. We want it to be a healthy ego. The alter ego is the one that came in, particularly as a child, because we, are relying on somebody else for care. We can't take care of ourselves yet. You know what I mean? Um, and we're in an environment that we can't remove ourselves from necessarily if there's, abuse and different things going on. So the ego, the alter ego comes in actually as a form of protection. All right. So even though it can be manipulative and it can be doing things that are harmful, it comes in at the time to actually protect whatever the trauma is at the moment. Okay. But the thing is then it stays and it then attracts more of the same. Okay. So whether, it's, being untruthful, right? Lying, whether it's being manipulative, whether it's being jealous, whether it's being envious, whether it's, all these different things that come in, it comes in because a trauma came in. I'm sorry,
Being,
hon.
being a bully.
Right. Absolutely. Right. So that's what we're clearing. But we want the alter ego to also know that you can only clear with unconditional love. You have to unconditionally love that shadow part of self, the alter ego, because again, it came in for a reason. And so one of the things when mine shows up, you know what I mean? When it's like, oh, okay, that there's a trigger. So now I'm feeling, right, the way that I'm feeling, insecure or whatever the case may be. First, I want to thank the event or the experience or the person that triggered it for me, because now I have an opportunity, because now it's popped out into the field to clear it. I want to thank the shadow part of self, because I know it came in for a reason during a trauma. And I wanted to know that I love it unconditionally, and I want to integrate it and shift its frequency so that now it becomes part of the healthy ego, right? And or part of, integrating within the from just unconditional love. So because we can't destroy energy, and the alter ego thinks we're trying to destroy it, and we've been taught, years, like the new age stuff, like reject it, don't even look at that, just all happiness and good and love and so forth, which is wonderful, but it's not then healing
Yeah.
this shadow part, right? We can't just, and the more that we reject it, right, we're causing it more pain. It's already in pain. That's what it is. The alter ego is our pain body. And so we have to accept it, meaning, yep, that's mine. Here it is. You know what I mean? As opposed to reject, oh no, I'm not like that. I won't think like that. Accept it and then love it. And then it will transform in its frequency into our higher self of unconditional love and source and the truth of who we are. And once that's transformed, like I said, the spirit can your spirit unique to you can move more fully back into your body, because it was pushed out when the trauma came in. Okay, so that's important to
I've never
understand.
heard that about the spirit being pushed out by the trauma.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, can you go a little deeper with that, or a little further? Is it a choice that I make to push it out? Does spirit, because I don't like asking whys, because I think the ego pops in all the time when you ask why. I'm more about the hows, the whats, the whens. So
Right.
what is it in me, or what is it in the action of trauma
Uh-huh.
pushes the spirit?
So,
Does the
okay.
spirit want to leave?
No, so here's where I really understood. And when I saw it happen, the information came in really quick, right? So I have a grandson. And at the time, he was probably like 3 years old. And you know how children love when you come up behind them and you startle them, right? And initially they're like startled, and then they start laughing like it's so much fun, right? And so I was watching him, and my son came in, and my grandson didn't see his dad come in yet, right? And so my son hid behind the wall or whatever. And as my grandson came out, he jumped out, right? And I watched my grandson's spirit go zoop, zoop, okay? But there's parts of it that stay out because it was startling, like it scared him, right? It was, and that's a trauma. Like we kind of think of trauma as being, this way or this way or this way, but trauma comes in so many forms and so many levels, right? There can be little traumas and there can be big traumas. So even somebody just saying, what were you thinking? Like you're not saying you're stupid, but the child is taking that as, oh my God, like I'm awful. Like, well, I don't know. What was I thinking? I'm a terrible person. You know what I mean? That's a trauma. So the parent didn't mean it as a trauma. The parent's just like flabbergasted or frustrated or just kind of like, what are you doing? Right. Um, so when that happens, when the trauma comes in, it's just that initial jolt to the system, and it could be even just, a noise came in behind you that you weren't expecting. If whatever jolt to the system, the spirit's going to do this. And
Okay.
then it'll come back in, but there's parts that stay out because it's like, yeah, I'm not experiencing that again. I'm just going to hang out here. Okay. And, you just do your thing and I'm just going to stay out here. And so the trauma, like I said, just imagine frozen ice. It takes up a spot in the system. And until that's released, then the spirit says, now it's safe to come back in because that trauma has been released. But as long as it's there, it's like, nope, I'm not coming.
So let's move
Yeah.
into perfect, beautiful. And that is a great segue into, tell us now about the work you actually do as a facilitator to open up, because as I said, I can look at you and I know when you are inside my body, unplugging
Mm.
wires and I picture sometimes when I'm working with Lisa, I picture Lisa back in the old days of the big boxes for operators where they had to pull the plug and push it into, oh, what number can I get in there? Like this whole cord thing going. So this is a twofold question for us. What is the work that you are actually doing when you come in? And when you come in for my own healing or to help me do my healing, is that healing vibrating to a level that I am helping to heal the world?
Yes. Okay. Wonderful. Yeah, because each time you change your frequency, that frequency is put out into the collective field, right? We're talking about the billions of people. So self-responsibility, we raise our frequency, then it's a higher frequency we're putting out into the field. And that has an effect. So here's the grid, right? That has an effect on everyone around us, particularly that are immediately, connected to us, but it expands out like that ripple thing in the water, right? And that frequency we're putting out helps the collective field, raise its vibration, get stronger and stronger and stronger, and it can help others to also raise their vibration. Okay. So with the work that how it's evolved, because it just evolved over time, is I feel like my job as a facilitator is to be completely present with the person. And that I'll always ask, how you doing? What's going on? What's been going on since I last spoke with you? Because I have had clients come in and say, nothing really is happening. everything seems to be okay. I'm good, right? And then I'll be guided to just maybe just ask a simple question or whatever, or, all of a sudden, they'll be guided to say, well, I did have this dream. You know what I mean? Whatever it is, my job is to open things out into the field, okay? Or to trigger a little bit. So I may even say something that's a little bit triggering, um, because once it opens out into the field, it's a lot easier to clear. And then one thing can lead into the next type of thing. So, and this is what I do with the groups too. So when I do a group clearing, I'm guided in my meditation to talk about a specific subject for a little bit. Because as I'm talking about that subject, what it's doing is it's triggering or opening things for the participants in the group, right? Just like we would for the individual. The difference between the individual and group is obviously the individual is much more personalized, right? It's going to be specific to your things
Right.
that are going on, specific to you. But we're all really going through this, the same things, just on different levels or in different ways, right? And so once the it's in the field, the key to clearing is being aware of what it is, right? What's been running through the subconsciousness. It's like, oh, I thought I was completely fine with my parent. You know what I mean? That we had cleared whatever thing that was going on. And then we find out, oh, no, maybe not totally. There's still some residual there, that I didn't realize was still having an effect, right? And this is where you'll see it in your relationships. Our relationships are showing us what's going on in the subconscious part of self, big time.
Oh,
That's the
gosh,
point of them. Yeah,
wow. Wow.
yeah, yeah. So, again, we are all on this ascension process together, and we don't have to agree on how that should be or what it looks like, but it's just being mindful when our triggers of anger, frustration, fear, resentment, hatred, rage, I mean, jealousy, all of these things, when that comes into the field and you're feeling those emotions, if you can take a moment, one, you have to allow the emotion to be, right? It's part of who you are, but then take a moment to say, okay, there's definitely something here I need to clear, all right, that I need to work or heal from, because this is coming to surface for me. So instead of it, the other person now being the enemy that triggered that, they're actually part of your healing process, which is not always an easy thing to,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, when Lisa and I first started working together a long time ago, I had to learn that lesson from, she taught me that lesson that some of the people in my life who were violent people were actually my teachers, and I call them my healers. They brought up, I believe, that's why I said, I've got one foot in the past life and one foot not, because
right, yeah,
I'm in a questioning phase. I'm in an investigation phase.
always,
I'm
always,
firing phase. So all the beliefs that I thought I had recently have been like, do I? However, I do believe strongly that I came to this planet with a lot of healing to do. And
mm,
you're right. That is a very hard one. And, I wasn't going to, but I am going to bring it because today's date is January 21st, 2021, because I don't know when you'll be able, not you, Lisa, I don't know when any of my audience will actually be watching this. So this is the day after inauguration of President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. Thank you, America, for voting a woman into office. That's all I'm saying about that. However, I know the last 4 years administration for some people brought up an awful lot that needed to be healed. And instead of being spiteful and angry and hateful, can we please just say thank you for showing us what we need to heal within ourselves? Took a while for me to get there, but I truly did think. And it was that episode I had 2 weeks ago with someone I love very, very dearly. And it got really heated. And it was because of that reflection
Mhm.
being able to guide me to say, Karen, that person is being just as passionate about their point of view as you are. And so to kind of wrap this up, because I want to give the entities and you, Lisa, the last word, um, folks, just know when you're pointing a finger, three are pointing back at you. Accountability is what will heal, not accountability of they've got to be accountable. He has to be accountable. She has to be accountable. We have to be accountable within our own selves of what we are putting out. And while you're shaming and blaming someone, that's creating shame and blame within you. Lise, what you got to add to that, honey?
Thanks, sweetie. So it's so interesting. These past few minutes, the quantum field actually opened. Um, so these, I find like when I do recordings, because I record the groups that I do once a month, they're actually living recordings. Okay, so the energy transfer comes through the recording. So just to know that when you do, whoever does watch this or what have you, that energy is always moving, right? And like I said, the last few moments, and I'm still in it, I can still feel it. The quantum field is open and energy is moving. So as you're listening to this, just kind of check in with self. Know that there's something taking place here every time that you do see this, and each time it's an opportunity to continue to open and open and open, because the truth is that we are all connected to one another. Okay, sisters, brothers, it doesn't, parents, children, we are all interconnected. We are all creator, God, spirit, source, whatever label you want to use with that. We are, that expressing through each and every one of us to have our individual experiences, but we are one. Okay, we all are connected as one. And so, we have to unconditionally love ourselves and unconditionally love others. It doesn't mean we agree with others' opinions and stuff. And it also doesn't mean that, like, with Karen, if I may, the abuser, which, some are very severe, it doesn't mean what they did is okay.
Right.
Okay. It's their distortion that's within them as well, right? So you didn't bring this on. It's not your fault. Like any of, I want to make that very clear. But we have to find a place within ourselves to unconditionally love and forgive in order to be whole and for our spirit to move in fully. So I just want to, leave that with, love, you know, thy neighbor as thyself, right? And just doesn't mean you have to agree with the person, but just to love one another and be kind to one another and to care for one another. This is the message that we really base this, interview or this talk about, with, the other stuff that is just helping us to understand how that works.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you, love. Thank you so
Sure.
much. Yes, it was definitely a conversation that, I mean, the download in Lisa was just popping and shoo, 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 and I'm going, whoa, whoa. I'm like, wait, God, I was bawling, folks. I was bawling my eyes out. I was crying. I could feel it. And I'm like, this is a message the world has to hear in the way that only Lisa. This is a message a lot of people share, but I needed
Right.
it through Lisa's message because the way she presents it. And that's the other part of things. We all have the same wants and desires, as you spoke of earlier. We
Right.
all want to be heard. We all want to be seen. We all want to be valued. We all want to be loved. And when we are not giving that to each other, we cannot expect to receive that.
Mm.
You want to be seen, you want to be valued, and you want to be heard, and you want to be loved. Be that to others. And if there is something within you that is resisting that, I'm going to make sure Lisa's contact information is in the comments wherever platform this is going to be on. You
Oh.
can connect with Lisa. She does do group work, but so you can sign in for a class or you can do one-on-one with her. Again, we have been doing virtual sessions because of the fact of the pandemic. I just know in this incarnation here on this planet right now, I don't see me being whole and complete and completely healed. I see me as whole, perfect, and complete as I am, but there does need to be. And Lisa is a great reminder of the I am that I am. And you started that off, and this is how we're going to end it. If we remember that we are the I am that I am, then loving each other becomes so much easier. And it's not the kind of love that you have for a puppy, a child, a spouse. It's the respect and the admiration that I am you, you are me. Any last words, Lisa?
No, I can't put anything more beautiful than that. Thank you, sweetie.
I honor
Namaste.
Goddess for being with us today. I thank you. I thank you. I thank you. And I'm just so grateful our paths came together.
Me as well. Thank you so much, dear one.
Love you, honey.
Love you too.
Okie doke.
Take care.